Hi, everybody. Yeah, these are very, very challenging times. We really have some rough things to deal with, and it's been no fun, really, in a lot of ways. This last year and a half, 2 years, and so forth. So, we all try to deal with our issues day to day. That's what it means to live, right? It's not always a bed of roses. So, I've got something I'm going to discuss with you people, and the reason I'm going to mention it is because a lot of you have been following me for a long time, and you watch my live streams, and we get down and dirty sometimes, and I discuss annoyances, like, for example, my upstairs neighbor. And I'm going to tell you some news that I got that's kind of good news, actually. But, a lot of times where there's good news, there's also bad news. So let's go into it. This matter has to do with my upstairs neighbor who moved in a few years ago, and then he wound up having his girlfriend move in with him. And, for a long time I've lived in this apartment. I've lived in this apartment approximately 6.5 years now. And in the 6.5 years, I didn't have anything else to compare it with. You see, I've never been an apartment liver before. I've always lived in a private house up until 6.5 years ago. And I really enjoyed that kind of private life. So when we first moved in, my girlfriend and I, to this apartment, we live downstairs and the neighbor's upstairs, all right? Originally, when we moved in here 6 years ago, there was a single guy in his 30s. This guy did nothing wrong. He was a good guy, and he was working a lot of the time. But I wasn't used to the idea of living in an apartment. I didn't know what it was like, And as I say, this guy did nothing wrong. All he did was walk around his apartment. All he did was take a shower, go to the bathroom and flush the toilet. Normal things we all have to do. He wasn't doing anything outrageous. He didn't play loud music at ungodly hours or anything. But yet, nevertheless, I was annoyed as hell. And the reason I got annoyed is because I wasn't used to hearing all kinds of sounds and ceiling squeaking and making videos in my music room and having all kinds of problems with the toilet flushing and the cascade whoosh of sound that came with that and stuff. So it was kind of rough. But I started to learn very quickly from talking to other people who have been in similar situations. There are 1,000,001 stories out there about apartment horrors, what people have to deal with when they're in apartments. So I started to realize that although I may have thought that my situation wasn't very good, I started to realize, hey, I actually have it pretty easy. I mean, what if they had children up there, right? What if I had like a child upstairs, or I had somebody with dogs? There were a few neighbors down in my complex, a few doors down, that they have 2 children, 2 dogs, and I think another child on the way. And I said to myself, imagine if they were upstairs from me, so it's not really too good. Well, anyway, this original neighbor that I had moved out, and then we got the guy who presently lives here moved in. And this guy originally started out as being a single guy by himself, and he's actually very quiet, the guy that lives here presently. And the second guy, he really wasn't bad. The problem was, whenever he would have a party, which seemed to be like every weekend or every other weekend at best, if you're lucky, it would be very noisy up there as soon as you had guests up there, because the walls in this apartment are very, very thin. They're like tissue paper. And I mean, you can hear everything. If somebody sneezes, you hear it. If somebody's having a conversation in the living room, even quietly, you can hear every word. It's really terrible, Unfortunately, my girlfriend and I, we're stuck. We're not in a position anytime soon to move, and we're working on it. We have a plan. We do have an elaborate plan to get ourselves into a rented house, because we're going to have to rent. We're not buying. And that rented house is not going to be for a while yet. Well, I'll get into this as we go along. So just bringing you up to speed on what's going on. The girlfriend that's upstairs is very tall, lanky, got a very heavy foot. Bomp, 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 bomp. You all know I have an affectionate nickname for her. I call her Stompy. All right? Well, this second guy that moved in, about 3 years ago, we started having a habit of smoking pot. All right? And those of you who know me know I have never smoked pot in my life. My girlfriend doesn't smoke weed either. And I think it's the worst, most foul-smelling, skunky crap ever. Okay, it is very annoying. Well, about 3 years ago, the guy upstairs started smoking a lot of pot. And you could smell it down here because the walls are so thin, it just permeates right through, and we can breathe it. Both of us, it bothers our throats. I get gunk in there, and I don't need to smell somebody's crap, all right? Now, unfortunately, smoking of marijuana has been legalized. Just call that one of the many things that's crazy and upside down about today's world. And as a result, it's legal to smoke it. Fine, smoke it in your own apartment or your own house. However, if it happens to be a situation like this where I got to smell it and I don't want any part of it, now we got an issue. So 3 years ago, I kind of politely talked to him about it. I was kind of hesitant to do so because no matter how strong I come on here, sometimes I'm not really the type of guy who wants to kind of make trouble. So I talked to him. He was very understanding 3 years ago, and he stopped smoking the marijuana. He said, okay, I'll smoke it outside. Sure enough, he must have started smoking it outside because I never smelled it for I'm going to say, approximately 3 years. Thank you. That was very nice of him. However, recently, the last few days, I've started smelling it again. And I don't know why. And my girlfriend has a texts his name. And after a while, she texted him and said, would you please try to do something if you could stop this? Or if you got to smoke, could you try to make sure somehow it doesn't come down? Try to contain it to your own apartment. And he never responded to the text. And that was funny. Why didn't he respond? He was so good about it 3 years ago. So he never responded, and then she said, well, I'll text him again. And it got a little bit more involved, and they had a conversation. And he denied that he was smoking. He said, I'm not smoking. I'm not smoking. And she said, well, we could smell it down here, she wrote. She said, you're smoking because we can smell it. And he says, well, maybe you have a problem down there. Maybe you have some kind of a gas leak or something dangerous. Maybe you should consult the landlord because it could be a problem. Now we're getting into it, right? So she types back, she says, we know what pot smells like, okay? This is pot, okay? And we could smell it in a closet. We open the closet upstairs, all this kind of stuff. So then he turns around. Here's the good news, right? That I told you about at the beginning. The good news is, he says, just a heads up for you guys, is I'm going to be leaving, at the end of September. So at the end of September, this guy's moving out. Great news, right? Great news. So I decided to call the landlord up. Now here's the deal with the landlord. This landlord that we have, I haven't had many dealings with him, but anytime I've talked to the landlord, I found him to be actually a very, very nice guy and very easy to approach and talk to. And I got to tell you, people, I consider myself a model tenant. And what do I mean by a model tenant? Well, I would imagine if you were a landlord, I would guess that there's two things you want to have from a tenant. Number one, that you always pay your rent on time and pay your rent, right? Yeah, we do that, no problem. The second thing is that you never have complaints about us, or we never bother you, and you don't even know we're there. We're very good at that also. So we're the model tenants. Now, I'm naive enough to think that because this guy seemed like a nice guy, and because I'm a model tenant, I thought I would ask him if he could help me out with something. So I called the landlord up and I say, I understand the guy upstairs from me is moving. He says, yes, he's moving. And I said to him, and I put it just like this. I said, gee, I have to ask you something, but I really don't know how to ask you this. I don't want to, it's hard to ask you. I said, I feel a little embarrassed to even ask you this. He said, well, what? So I said to him, do you think that if you have a choice, if it's at all possible, I don't want to tell you your business, I say, but if you have a choice, do you think maybe, we've had single guys up there, and it's kind of a little crazy, and before I could say anything, he goes, it's already a done deal. He says, we have a married couple up there with an 8-year-old kid coming in. There's the bad news. Are you kidding me? So now, folks, this drama is going to get even better in the future. We're going to have a couple and a child, 3 people up there. And, I'll tell you, the apartment upstairs is very much like my apartment downstairs that you see in my videos. The layout is exactly the same. So because I make my videos in the music room, which is the smaller bedroom. We have a smaller bedroom, which is the room I use for the videos, and the master bedroom, which is across the hall. Where do you think this kid is going to be hanging out? Where do you think his bedroom's going to be? That's right. Probably right above my music room where I make the videos. Now, this is all too early. This is just speculation. Right away, people I know, my girlfriend and other people, have said to me, wait a minute now, don't put the cart before the horse. You don't know what's going to happen here. I mean, for all you know, these could be very quiet people. They could have a very respectable child. I don't even know if the kid is a boy or a girl. I don't know. But the bottom line is, I'm not like, see, right away, I prepare. Here's what I do. I prepare for the worst and expect the worst. And then after I expect the worst, I hope for the best. I don't go in there being optimistic and thinking, just because I optimistically think it's going to be okay, oh, I'm going to be optimistic. You know, Jagaru Deva Om. You know, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to will it into existence that this is going to be a very nice kid and well behaved and quiet as anything, quiet as a mouse. I don't know that. So while I believe in positive thinking, there's no amount of positive thinking can make this change. Either they're going to be quiet people, or they're going to be easygoing people, and it's going to be a good situation, or it's going to be a bad situation. Whatever it is, it's going to be. It's going to be, you know. So, but one thing I can try to be positive about and try to have a positive image. Here's where the optimism comes in. I can try to deal with it the best I can. So I'm going to take this one step at a time, and I'm going to keep you people very much notified, because that's what I do. You know, I'll make videos, we'll talk. This is like this is every bit as much a reality TV show as it is a you know, music and Beatles channel. So I'm not looking forward to this. I'm guessing this is going to be around October or so of this year that these new people are going to move in, and I don't expect it to be good. I don't see how it can be. You know, because every breath, every footstep, every word that comes out of somebody's mouth is magnified. You can hear it, and it just gets in the way of everything. So we'll see how it goes, all right? As far as my situation, if you made it this far, and some people won't, I want to say, people always say to you, well, why don't you just get a house, you know? In fact, the landlord said that. This is a nice guy, you know. And as we're talking, he says to me, I think you should buy a house. And I said to him, well, that's not going to happen. You know, it's not like just needing a pair of shoes. You know, oh, I'll go out and I'll buy a pair of shoes. It don't work like that, okay? It takes money and it takes time, you know. It takes like several $100,000 to buy a house. We can't just buy a house, all right? But we do have a plan, as I said, to rent the house. And it's funny that as I was talking to the landlord, I said, you know, the rent here is very high, you know, this is crazy. And it is. I live in New York, and the rent in New York is really high. And he says to me, he has the nerve to say to me, the landlord, well, actually, it could be even higher. I'm actually paying, it's actually low for what you're getting here. I mean, oh, don't give me that, you know. Then he says to me, you know, I think you'd be happy living, you probably need to move to a place like Alabama or Mississippi, he says, because of the rent, you know. And I said to him on the phone, I said, hey, I don't have to move to Alabama in order to have low rent. I mean, you know, there's Florida, there's New Hampshire, Maine, you know, North Carolina. I mean, what is this Alabama? I was surprised that the guy, the landlord, was such a jerk. You know, I didn't expect him to be like that. But there he was. And because he seems like a nice guy, and I expected him to be a nice, reasonable kind of guy. And he says, we have a waiting list to get into these apartments, you know, a real long waiting list. He says, so if you want to leave, you know, leave, he says to me, and, you know, I'll even let you leave, you know, with the, I guess, the lease. And I said to him, well, believe me, if I could, I would, but we're stuck. Which is true. We're stuck here, my girlfriend and I, for a little while. And the thing is, we have a plan to go in with a couple that we're close to, one of our a friendly couple that we have. And the idea is that they're eventually going to sell their house, and then they're going to buy property in another state with a couple of houses, and we're going to move into a house of our own, and they're going to be our landlords, and that should be a good situation. But here's the catch. I thought that was going to occur in about something like 2 years, something like that. But lately, I've heard from this couple, they're looking at no more than 5 years. 5 years. At the most. 5 years? Wasn't expecting that. I'll let you know how this drama plays out, folks. Thank you for watching. Never a dull moment on this planet.